Hi all, this is Piyush. So finally the Prelims 2024 is done. और प्रीलिम्स होने के बाद जो सबसे बड़ी क्यूरियोसिटी रहती है वो ये रहती है कि किन एरिया से कितने क्वेश्चंस आए, आई मीन द डिफरेंट पेपर्स से कितने सारे क्वेश्चंस आए, क्वेश्चंस के लेबल्स क्या थे, लाइक वेदर दे वर दे कुड बी केप्ट इन द tough questions, they could be kept in the moderate questions or easy questions, right? And finally, like the most important thing, that what would be the cutoff or what could be the cutoff of this Prelims 2024. So I think this is sort of very normal pattern which can be noticed everywhere. So that's the reason because of what we are just going to discuss about, like the same thing but precisely for one area, that is history. Now the question is that this time the number of questions were pretty less from history. Normally you can find a pattern that around 17 to 20, 21 questions are being asked, but this time we can see only 10 to 12 questions are being asked, right? Now why am I saying 10 to 12 questions? There is a very simple reason. There are certain questions which could be kept even in polity or maybe in other areas also, तो वो थोड़ा dicey है. So मैं precisely count कर रहा हूँ कि अगर history से हम पूछे तो history से कितने total questions आए, I can say 10 questions which are precisely from history, right? And if we'll see the distribution of these questions, in that case we'll find that now there is a sort of a very imbalanced kind of distribution of the questions that we can see. So such as if we'll talk about the number of questions which are there from ancient. So from ancient you can find that 3 questions are being asked, right? Now when I'm saying ancient, I simply mean that while studying the ancient part, the things or the topics what you focus, if we count those topics, in that case we can say precisely 3 questions were asked from ancient India, right? Then it comes to the medieval India. From medieval India, this time just 1 question, because the total number of question was only 10, and that's from medieval you can find just 1 question was being asked. Then it comes to the modern. And from modern you can find just 2 questions have been asked, and there were also very simple kind of questions which have been asked, right? On the other hand, I can say when it comes to the art and culture, again the same criteria we have been following. Art and culture se kitne questions aaye? Art and culture se only 2 questions can be noticed from the art and culture. And when it comes to the current, so whatsoever things related to art and culture or history which were there in news, there are 2 questions that have been asked from the current affairs. So basically this is the distribution of the questions of the history, right? And when you talk about the toughness level of these questions, so I believe 5 to 6 questions were as such which we can say that they were doable questions. आप कर सकते थे, और थोड़ा लॉजिक अगर आप अप्लाई करते तो उससे भी क्वेश्चंस बन सकते थे, या फिर आप क्वेश्चन के आंसर के काफ़ी क्लोज पहुंच सकते थे. तो ये पैटर्न जो है हम देखते थे. ऑन द अदर हैंड आई कैन डेफिनेटली से दैट देयर वर सम क्वेश्चंस व्हिच वर लिटरली वेरी टफ, एंड आई बिलीव दैट दीज क्वेश्चंस कुड नॉट बी आंसर्ड बिकॉज दीज वर क्वाइट फैक्चुअल. और जब क्वेश्चंस बहुत फैक्चुअल होता है तो सीधी देयर इज अ वेरी स्ट्रेट थिंग, ईदर यू नो और यू डू नॉट नो. इन दीज काइंड ऑफ क्वेश्चंस यू कुड नॉट गो इवन फॉर द गेस ऑल्सो. सो let's see the questions one by one. As I told you that I have included just 10 questions, so we'll be discussing basically those 10 questions. Okay, fine. So what is the first question? Which one of the following is a work attributed to the playwright that's called as Bhasa? Now Bhas is a very popular writer, he was one of the earliest authors who had been writing in Sanskrit, and in fact Bhas has always been given this credit that if anyone is trying to make Sanskrit very popular, Bhas is one of them, and that's how there is great contribution of Bhas. And there is a longer list of the books which were written by Bhas, but then the reason because of what this person is very popular is basically Swapna Vasavaddhata. That's the book. Mostly we read about Bhasa for this particular creation. But then here something very different has been asked. Now how to do this particular question, let's see. So ये कहते हैं कि which one of the following is written by basically Bhas. अब ठीक है, एग्जैक्टली जो ये स्वप्न वासवदत्ता यहाँ पे नहीं है तो हम एग्जैक्टली तो उसका आंसर नहीं फिगर आउट कर सकते हैं. अगर हमें आंसर नहीं पता है तो हम थोड़ा गेस वर्क में जा सकते हैं. सच एज देयर इज वन ऑप्शन दैट्स कॉल्ड एज नाट्य शास्त्र. नाट्य शास्त्र वाज रिटन बाय भरत मुनि. सो इट्स समथिंग व्हिच इज वेल नोन फैक्ट, तो इसमें बहुत कंफ्यूजन नहीं है. देन इट कम्स टू महाभाष्य, एंड महाभाष्य वाज रिटन बाय बेसिकली पतंजलि, एंड दैट्स हाउ वी आर डिस्कार्डिंग दिस ऑप्शन आल्सो. सो दीज टू कैन बी इजीली डिस्कार्डेड, राइट? Now it comes to the first one, that is Kavyalankar. Now this is actually a Buddhist text, right? And this particular Buddhist text was based on one of the sects of Buddhism, and that's why if you have little bit idea about it, in that case you can even discard this also. Like the answer is coming, or else like if you know the fact directly that is Madhyama Vyaya Yoga, that is the text which was written by him, right? It's basically a play, and this play is very important for its like genre or for its style, and this is like the it is considered to be the creation of Bhasa. So this will be the answer. So this is the first question. Let's move to the next question. Now next question is Sanghabhuti, an Indian Buddhist monk who traveled to China at the end of the 4th century AD, was the author of a commentary on okay, fine. Now this is again a book that has been asked. So you can find that good number of questions as compared to the total questions, like good number of questions have been asked from the art and culture, specifically from literature. And I think you all can notice that gradually, day by day, either you talk about the pre or mains, even the optional, gradually the significance of the language and literature is increasing, and every year at least 1 or 2 questions are being asked. 10 क्वेश्चन में अगर वो 2 क्वेश्चन भी जो है सीधा सीधा लिटरेचर से पूछ रहे हैं, इसका मतलब है एक एस्पेक्ट है जिसको बहुत हाईलाइट किया जा रहा है. अब ये क्वेश्चन थोड़ा मैं टफ लेवल पे रखूंगा, और क्यों मैं इसको टफ लेवल पे रखूंगा, क्योंकि इसके आंसर्स यूजुअली किसी भी ट्रेडिशनल सोर्स में आपको नहीं मिलेगा. नाउ दिस बुक वाज एक्चुअली बीइंग डिस्कस्ड इन विच सोर्स, दैट इज बेसिकली उपिंदर सिंह's book, right? So if you read the Upinder Singh's book, in that case you can find the answer of this book. Now it is of course I'm not saying that you should know it, क्यों, क्योंकि हम इतना डिटेल में जाके उन लिटरेचर को पढ़े. हालांकि लिटरेचर की सिग्निफिकेंस जैसा कि मैंने आपको बताया कि वो ग्रेजुअली बढ़ रही है, तो उस केस में अगर आप जो है पढ़ते हैं तो उसमें कोई बुराई नहीं थी. Of course so you can find the answer there. Now what is the answer basically? So it's basically Sarvastivād Vinaya. This is the this is the text on what he has written a commentary. That is the answer of this particular question. Okay, moving to the next question. Now it is a current based question. Consider the following properties included in the World Heritage List released by UNESCO. Now this is a current based question, and in fact everybody knew about one of the greater development last year, that is about the secret ensembles of the Hoysalas. And जब ये डिक्लेयर किया गया था उस समय मोरलेस बहुत सारे यूट्यूब में वीडियोस अवेलेबल थे इसके लिए, जब इनको इंक्लूड किया गया था. इसको यूपीएससी ने क्या किया है कि दे हैव मर्ज्ड इट विद सम अदर इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग्स, एंड देन दैट्स हाउ दे हैव आस्क्ड द क्वेश्चन. आई थिंक व्हेन यू हैव बीन प्रिपेयरिंग फॉर यूपीएससी, दैट्स अ कॉमन पैटर्न कि जब भी कोई चीज़ एक लाइमलाइट में होती है या न्यूज़ में होती है, तो हम यूजुअली क्या करते हैं कि उसके इर्द गिर्द की इन्फॉर्मेशन भी हम कलेक्ट करते हैं. सो इन दैट रिगार्ड वी कैन से कि यू शुड हैव गॉन फॉर दिस. सो द क्वेश्चन इज आस्किंग दैट विच कंसिडर द फॉलोइंग प्रॉपर्टीज इंक्लूडेड इन द वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज लिस्ट, राइट? सो रिलीज बाय यूनेस्को. सो दिस इज वन इम्पॉर्टेंट ये दैट इज दिस सेक्रेड ensembles of the Hoysalas, and then it was Shantiriki. So both of them were in news. So I think it's very easy to answer. Only 2 is the answer of this particular question. Okay, let's move to the next one. Okay, fine. So next one is with reference to the ancient India, Gautam Buddha was generally known by which of the following epithets? Again, it's a very simple question, right? And in fact, if you have studied Buddhism a bit seriously, in that case, you could have answered this question. So I will keep it in a very simple, in a simple question. So okay, Nyayaputta is something which is not normally known to us, right? So हम इसको discard करते हैं. Sakya Muni, because he was coming from the Sakya clan, and that's why he was known as Sakya Muni. That's one thing. And then Tathagat, that means enlightened. So this is the meaning of this particular word. So अगर आपको मीनिंग भी पता होगी तब भी आप इस आंसर को, इस क्वेश्चन को कर सकते थे. सो आई थिंक इट्स नॉट अ वेरी कॉम्प्लिकेटेड क्वेश्चन, इट्स अ वेरी सिंपल वन. सो साक्य मुनि एंड तथागत. सो आंसर इज बेसिकली 2 and 3, दैट इज बी. लेट्स मूव टू द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन. ओके, now the next question is consider the following information. So there are 3 lines basically. Now this is the next level of complication. अभी तक वो 2 रो दे के वो उनको मैच करने के लिए कहते थे, अब ये 3 रो दे के उनको मैच करने के लिए कह रहे हैं. तो of course it's a sort of new kind of question that they had started asking. Okay, fine. So basically we have to match, and we have to basically find the correctly matched correctly matched pairs. Okay, fine. Now how to do it, because again I find this particular question bit tough. लेकिन अगर थोड़ा logically करते तो ये question हो सकता था. It's a doable question. Now the point is that whatsoever sites have been given here, frankly speaking, there are 2 sites which are bit popular. And what are these sites? Inam Gaon popular है काफ़ी. It's very popular in fact, ठीक है. And in fact whenever you study chalcolithic, and that's also very surprising that Normally they do not ask question on Chalcolithic, megalithic, but this year they have asked questions on Chalcolithic also and megalithic. And honestly speaking, we always used to say, Arey, they are not very important, so you can avoid it. But then this time they have included the question, one question is basically based on them. So Inam Gaon is a very popular Chalcolithic site, and in fact Inam Gaon is popular for multiple features. ठीक है, जब भी हम Chalcolithic culture को study करते हैं तो इनाम गांव हमारे लिए हमेशा एक मॉडल होता है, क्योंकि by taking the reference of इनाम गांव we try to prove so many things. ठीक है, that's the reason it's very important. The level of development, the stage of development was much more greater as compared to other Chalcolithic sites, and that's how Inam Gaon remains very popular. So now this is one information which you know that it is correct. So basically one thing is pretty sure that second is correct. Let's say if you are unaware of rest of the things, in that case we can say that at least the two questions where two options where 2 is included is A and B. तो एक बात तो तय है कि ठीक है हम C को और D को डिस्कार्ड कर सकते हैं, हमने डिस्कार्ड कर दिया. Now the question is that कि 2 is paired with either 1 or 3. Chandraketugarh, again it's a site which is not completely unknown, and if you have studied history seriously, in that case you might have referred Chandraketugarh somewhere. So this is Chandraketugarh, basically it's Odisha, and then it's trading port town. This part is correct, but ये Odisha में नहीं है, ये Bengal, West Bengal में जो है included है, and that's the reason because of what this is also wrong. अब ये थोड़ा subjective था अगर आपको पता है, या फिर ये जो है that's Mangadu. Mangadu is basically one site which was recently in news, and since a megalithic site has been found over there, that's why it was recently in news. So I think इनमें से कोई भी information अगर आपको पता होती तो आप इस question को कर सकते थे. So the correct pairs are second and third. So answer is B. So that's how through some logic it could have been done. That is what I'm just suggesting. Okay. Now this is a question. This is the only question from medieval. Okay. सबको पता है विजयनगर इंपॉर्टेंट होता है, विजयनगर से क्वेश्चंस ऑलवेज एक्सपेक्टेड है, बट ये जो क्वेश्चंस है, ठीक है, ये जो क्वेश्चन है, ये क्वेश्चन थोड़ा टफ लेवल पे हम मानते हैं, क्योंकि यूजुअली हम जब जीएस को, हिस्ट्री को जीएस के पर्सपेक्टिव से पढ़ते हैं तो एक्चुअली वी डू नॉट गो टू दैट एक्सटेंट, राइट, बट दिस हैज़ बीन आस्क्ड. मैं ये भी नहीं कहूँगा कि बहुत रेयर इन्फॉर्मेशन है, इट्स लाइक दैट बुक आई हैड बीन डिस्कसिंग दैट वाज क्वाइट रेयर, बट ये इन्फॉर्मेशन बहुत रेयर नहीं है, एंड आई थिंक इफ यू हैव बीन स्टडिंग सीरियसली, इन दैट केस यू कुड हैव डन दिस पर्टिकुलर क्वेश्चन. What is this question? Who of the following rulers of medieval India gave permission to the Portuguese to build a fort at Bhatkal? This is the question. The point is this, right? This particular thing has been done during the some of the Vijayanagar rulers. That is pretty sure. और ये कब होता है? अगर थोड़ा लॉजिकली आप सोचते हैं तो यूजुअली जो है पोर्चुगीज जब एक बार बहमनी एम्पायर डिक्लाइन कर जाती है, उसके डिक्लाइन के बाद देन यू सी द पीरियड ऑफ कृष्णदेवराय, केडीआर, और वो पीरियड है जिसमें पोर्चुगीज और विजयनगर के बीच में गुड अमाउंट ऑफ फ्रेंडशिप डेवलप्स, एंड इनफैक्ट दे ऑल, बहमनीज एंड विजयनगर, दे नीडेड पोर्चुगीज, बट जब तक बहमनीज पावर में थी तब तक बहमनीज पोर्चुगीज के ज़्यादा क्लोज थे, और जब एक बार बहमनीज डिसइंटीग्रेट कर जाती है उसके बाद विजयनगर के साथ उनका रास्ता थोड़ा सुधरता है, और यही पीरियड है जिसमें अल्बुकर्क वाज गेटिंग द परमिशन फ्रॉम Krishnadevrai to construct this particular fort. So I think if you would have you would have been informed about these kind of information, in that case I think you have marked the correct answer. The correct answer is A for this particular question. Okay. Moving next. Now with reference to the revenue collection of Cornwallis, consider the following statement. Now there are two statements, these are basically based on the revenue settlements which were there during the colonial period. As you all know that there were 3 revenue settlements. These are permanent settlement, रैयतवारी settlement and महालवारी settlement. और ये question जो है रैयतवारी और महालवारी दोनों के ऊपर जो है, रैयतवारी and permanent दोनों के ऊपर based है. Now first statement, under the रैयतवारी settlement of the revenue collection, the peasants were exempted from revenue payment in cash of bad harvest or the natural calamities. अब ये बड़ा conceptual सा question है. Probably you cannot find that this particular line has been written anywhere directly as such. लेकिन अगर आपको पता है कि there used to be a system of पट्टा, और एक बार क्या होता था कि once you accepted the पट्टा, right, after that there was no exemption. So basically एक बार अगर आपने वो पट्टा एक्सेप्ट कर लिया, उसके बाद whatsoever amount has been written on that particular पट्टा, you need to pay it, and that's the reason because of this particular statement seems wrong, and that's why we can discard it. Okay, moving to the second one. Under the permanent settlement in Bengal, if the Jamindar failed to pay his revenue to the state, on or before the fixed date he would be removed from his zamindari. That is about the selling of zamindaris. Now it is a very popular feature of zamindari settlement, sorry. So that's the reason it's not a very tough question. So only 2 is the correct answer. Like that's how you could have marked it correctly. Okay. Next question, consider the following statement. Now this is a question, again could be done logically. Now this question is saying that there are no parables in Upanishads. Now this is a word, like that if you are aware of this particular word, in that case like you all can understand कि this is impossible. आप नहीं कह सकते हैं इतने vast literature में कि there is no parables. Parables मतलब होता है anything which is depicted in the story format, right? So basically it can be it can be impossible, right? It is impossible in fact, and that's why from the lining itself it is very clear कि this statement is wrong. ठीक है, इसमें बहुत कुछ नहीं. In fact जब बहुत सारे कठोपनिषद और बहुत सारी किताबें ऐसी उपनिषद ऐसे हैं जिन पे आपको बहुत अच्छे से पता है कि जिनके बारे में आपको बहुत अच्छे से पता है कि इसमें कुछ ना कुछ स्टोरीज जो हैं, तो पहली स्टेटमेंट को हम डिस्कार्ड कर सकते थे. एंड इनफैक्ट ये लाइन जिस तरीके से लिखी हुई है उसी से ये पता चलता है कि ये लाइन जो है इनकरेक्ट है. द सेकेंड इज Upanishads were composed earlier than the Puranas. I think it's a very straightforward things, right? And a basic understanding of this could have enabled you to correct this particular question, right? So that's why only 2. So B will be the right answer of this question. Okay, next question. Which one of the following was the latest inclusion in the intangible cultural heritage list of UNESCO? This is a current based question. No analysis is required. Basically is the Garba dance, which is included recently, and that's how we can say it's a simple question based on current. इतना current तो ये तो बहुत popular theme पे based है, so I think इतना तो idea आपको रहता है. Okay, fine. The last question is, with reference to the Government of India Act 1935, consider the following statements. Statement number 1. It provides for the establishment of an all India federation based on the union of the British India province and princely states. I think if you have studied this particular 1935 Government of India Act, in that case you all are aware that this is one of the broader feature, not the minor feature, it's a broader feature. आप सभी को पता है कि एक फेडरेशन जो है प्रपोज किया गया था, हालांकि इसका जो है सेंट्रल वाला पार्ट कभी भी इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं हो पाया, that's a different thing, but the federation was the core part of this particular act, and that's why the first statement is undoubtedly correct, right? The second part, defense and the foreign affairs were kept under the control of the federal legislature, right? So if it is kept under the federal legislature, I think the मामला will be clear there only. ठीक है, जाहिर सी बात है कि that was not the complete transfer of power, and you all know that when power is there or when power is concerned, now that can be defined with respect to these two terms, defense and foreign affairs. तो बहुत जाहिर सी बात है कि ये legislature को अगर ये दे देंगे, इसका मतलब है कि it's a sort of partial transfer of power. तो ये नहीं हो सकता. Then that's why it was basically transfer. It was kept as a reserve list. और एज अ रिजर्व पोर्टफोलियो विद अ वॉइसरॉय, मतलब वीटो पावर जिस पे हो सकता था या जिस पे वो रिजर्व रख सकते थे उनको. तो दैट इज द रीजन बिकॉज ऑफ व्हाट दिस इज द रॉन्ग स्टेटमेंट. सो ओनली वन इज करेक्ट. So the first A will be the correct answer. Okay, so these are the various answer of the questions. So I believe that there were 5 to 6 questions which were doable, and in fact out of 100 questions, out of 10 questions, if you are marking 5 or 6 correct answers, that's fair enough. There is no problem at all in this in that case, where 60% is a fair enough marks if you have been scoring this much, right? So if you really want to download the detailed answer and the sources, the reasons because of what these questions have been asked, in that case you can come to our Telegram, and in our Telegram, I have given the detailed answer, the reason because of what it was the question was being asked, and in fact what are the sources from what the questions were being asked. Everything I have given in a detailed format. That will be that is uploaded in my Telegram channel. So you can go to my Telegram channel and you can see the detailed answer of it. Thank you very much.